at the moment there are very few companies that can build these data centers as quickly and as fast as some of the big American infrastructure companies. But there is a domestic industry here as well, and it's really, for those that are critics of the government, they do believe they are too close to the big American tech companies. The Ministry of Defense has just signed a £400 million deal with Google Cloud, for instance, today. So you can see that there is worry there about essentially, do we have national champions here that we are pushing forward? And I don't think that debate is ever going to really go away until the balance is righted.
Hi, I'm Fergus Macphee, and welcome to the Tech Report on Times Radio. Joining me today is Mark Sellman, technology correspondent at the Times. Mark, how are you? Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to do something a little bit different today, and we're going to look ahead to next week because we all know that Donald Trump is going to be in the UK on his official state visit. And some of the names expected to join him at a state banquet are NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, OpenAI boss Sam Altman, and possibly even Apple's Tim Cook, among others. Why are they going to be joining him in the UK?
Well, when there's a big state visit like this, it's quite common for the dignitaries to bring business people and announce these pre-arranged deals. It sort of adds to the whole spectacle. It gives it an air of, respectability beyond the pomp and ceremony, and really goes to the heart of what the government is seeking to do, which is to drive its economic growth agenda.
Well, you sort of teased it a little bit there. OpenAI and NVIDIA are expected to announce billions of pounds of investments into UK data centres. This is kind of all part of the government's plans to become what they call an AI superpower. But when Huang recently visited in June, he was actually quite critical of Britain's current AI infrastructure. What is the state of AI in the UK?
Yeah, well, obviously, state of AI is really, when you think about it, you think about it in three pots. One pot is the data that is used to create AI. The other is the talent that's used to do that. And the third bit is what we're really talking about. It's the infrastructure. It's the data centers. It's the chips. It's the actual power used to drive those data centers. And that's really what we're talking about here. And I think what Jensen Huang was talking about when he talked about infrastructure. And one of the key bottlenecks in this country is the cost of our power. We are probably about 20%, more expensive than Europe. We don't really have the nuclear power that France has. And that is a real problem for us when you're talking about powering these very, very power hungry data centers. I think that's a key bit. But actually, we just don't have the number of data centers that the proponents of AI think we need.
Well, that's obviously, it hasn't been announced officially yet. But were you surprised? Because reading around it, it seems to be that the deal will be the UK government will provide the power, and NVIDIA and OpenAI will provide sort of, the chips and the software.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know the structure of these deals, but what the government is trying to promote is these AI growth zones, which are really old industrial sites that have sort of fallen by the wayside. But because they are old industrial sites, they probably have a lot of power infrastructure there already that can probably shorten the time it takes to get these data centers up and running. We're expecting maybe one in Teesside and Redcar, an old industrial plant, to be announced quite soon. And that is what the government is keen to promote, because obviously that shortens the time for power, but also planning. So they'll fast track the planning as well, which is a real problem when setting up sites like this.
I'm glad you mentioned the P word, planning, because back in January, the Chancellor and the government, I think they've sort of talked about this a lot, their hopes of creating, almost a Silicon Valley or a host of Silicon Valleys in the UK. I mean, do you think that's achievable sort of anytime soon? Specifically when it comes to planning in the UK, seems to always get in the way of things.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of building data centers, planning is a key aspect of it. Um, and obviously, there's a separate piece going on in terms of reforming planning for housing. I think this is a little easier to do because it's a very much an isolated use case, and these sites are probably there's probably not a lot of local opposition to them. But if they do fast track the planning, that is really, I think that is quite important. The key really question after it is sort of what does that data center do for the economy? Is it essential to power economic growth? And there are arguments on both sides of things. But we're currently in the middle of an AI boom, an AI hype cycle. If you're not building these data centers as a nation or as a almost as an industry, a tech industry, you're really seen as a laggard.
When it comes to, if we think back to a couple of years ago in terms of energy, the energy crisis in the UK, there was a real big push to start creating our own energy. And we are sort of, we're seeing the government at least talk about trying to do that. When we're coming to that AI race that you just mentioned there, how important is it for countries and nations to have their own industry when dealing with it rather than the big US firms?
Yeah, and I think that is probably a key part of it, is this idea of sovereign AI, because as you alluded to, most of the huge data centers that are being built by maybe five or six companies for their use and for their bottom line. When it comes to having your own data centers, we have seen one that's been opened, one called Isambard AI, which is a national supercomputer, but is opened in Bristol. We have started to see that process of a national AI infrastructure, but it's very slow to build, and actually it goes out of date very quickly. The Isambard AI supercomputer in 5 or 6 years' time will be obsolete. So you can see this process is really you have to do it quickly. But then you have to redo it all over again.
Let's go back to the billions of pounds of investment that we're expecting to be announced next week. Because is this going to involve a big tax break for tech companies? I know the TaxWatch think tank has launched. You've written about this in the Times, that they estimate Retro Reason the Treasury would face a £5 billion black hole if they scrapped a tax on tech companies as part of any deal with Donald Trump.
Yeah, we don't quite know what's happening with that tax vis-a-vis the negotiations with the Americans. But what we do know is that Donald Trump and the big American tech companies are very unhappy with this tax, which is a 2% tax on search engines, online marketplaces, the Googles and Amazons of the world. And they've wanted to get rid of that for some time. It raises about £1 billion a year for the Treasury. And they've been lobbying to get rid of it. Whether or not it'll go, we'll see. But if it does go, obviously, those that have opposed the scrapping of it will see it as a quid pro quo for this investment. But it's not quite clear whether the government will go down that route. As you know, the Treasury is under a lot of financial pressure at the moment. So losing even a regular £1 billion a year that may increase over time is not something they'd want to do.
Just finally, we won't get into the specifics of it, but there are some people in the UK who are quite unhappy about the president's state visit. I'm sure there are protests planned. But when it comes to AI and technology, if the UK does want to be a leader and a superpower, as our government says, is it vital that we secure this foreign investment?
It's a very good question, and that is a moot point at the moment. For some who are perhaps not in favour of this technology or not in favour of it being tied to overseas companies, then maybe not. But at the moment, there are very few companies that can build these data centers as quickly and as fast as some of the big American infrastructure companies. But there is a domestic industry here as well, and it's really, for those that are critics of the government, they do believe they are too close to the big American tech companies. The Ministry of Defense has just signed a £400 million deal with Google Cloud, for instance, today. So you can see that there is worry there about essentially, do we have national champions here that we are pushing forward? And I don't think that debate is ever going to really go away until the balance is righted.
And in terms of, we talk a lot on this show about the so-called AI bubble, whether it's real and whether it's about to burst. Is there another scenario when it does sort of get more democratized, and as you say, sort of different countries have their own sort of nation AIs?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of different aspects to that question, but the bottom line is, in order for people to use this technology, you do need data centers. I mean, you just do. Who builds them, where they're located, what they actually do for your economy in the long run, are all open questions. But the bottom line is that, just to give you an idea, you have close to 1 billion people using ChatGPT every on a regular basis. Now, when you have that, and there's an expectation that, you put in a question, you get a result, and it happens quickly, and all that stuff is reliant on these huge data centers, and also the location of them, being, sometimes closer to the user as well. So we'll see what happens. But I think I can't see the use of it from, a consumer point of view or a business point of view going down. It's just a matter of, when it comes to the bubble, is can the people spending the money get a return on the investment? That's the question with the bubble.
Mark Sellman, thank you so much for joining us on the Tech Report today.
Thank you very much.